Know that my green screen.
Green screen. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Real Estate Sales Solutions. Of course, I'm Abe Safa. I've got Brendon Payne with me today, and today we're going to have an interesting conversation. Brendon and I usually have coffee a couple times a week. We go to Starbucks and just kind of brainstorm on some ideas and talk about some things about the industry. So we decided, hey, let's just get on live on this channel and kind of share some of those thoughts. So the last conversation we were having is about being a CEO. That I've come, and so you, Brendon, you've come from the corporate world. I wasn't in the corporate world, but I've been in retail sales my whole life. And it's a different structure, coming to real estate. And even though every one of us is a independent contractor, many don't get the idea that it's actually a real business, that it should be treated like a business. So, and the topic of, being the CEO and not just being a regular real estate agent, like what comes to your mind when you hear that title?
Well, I think the biggest thing when you talk about being a CEO is understanding that it's actually a business and you're in charge. So I think one of the things that is a disconnect a lot of times, at least it was when I got in the business, like most people, I got in and I wanted to, not work for somebody else. I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to have, the schedule that I could make and be my own boss. And I think a lot of people say that, but that is, that's not necessarily a CEO. The CEO doesn't make their own schedule. The CEO isn't always their own boss. The CEO usually answers to somebody, and they definitely work schedules. And they're always looking at the numbers. So I think the difference is we come into the business and we want all those things, but then we believe that being the CEO just means, well, I just kind of get to do whatever I want to do, and it's actually owning a business. When you get your license, you become a full-time or even a part-time real estate agent. Then you are in charge of your business. You're the CEO. Now, whether or not the corporation, the company makes any money, that's going to depend on what you do every day. But I think it's first adopting that change, that it's not the CEO just doesn't get to start out, working 20 hours a week.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because one of the biggest reasons people get into the industry is they want to be their own boss, right? Mm-hmm. So being your own boss is not the same as running your own business. Right. So being your own boss, especially coming from a job and wanting to run away from that fear or from that pain, or whatever you want to call it, and being your own boss, a lot of times people equate that with freedom. So when they start thinking freedom, they don't think about, okay, when you own your own business, it's not necessarily freedom. I mean, there is some flexibility in the sense that, yes, you have some say on what goes on and what doesn't go on, but there's still the restrictions that a business and the requirements that a business needs. So now you don't have a boss, but you have the business that also has to be taken care of. So a lot of times people just don't look at it as, hey, I've got to run this business now. Yes, I left my job, but now I've got different responsibilities I got to take care of at this point. So what ends up happening is it is people get in and see a little bit of momentum, and then they start to flounder. You see the business start to fail a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that there's everything that we want when we start, the freedom, make your own schedule, stuff like that. That's all available. It's just not there at the beginning. Right. So with discipline, that's when the freedom shows up. It's just not built in. So not to, don't want to discourage anybody. This is the greatest industry ever. You can actually go and create all of that stuff, but it starts with early on the discipline that you have that creates that freedom. It creates you being able to do the things you want. The other thing is, it just kind of popped in my head when you were talking, was the CEO is they're responsible for a lot of stuff. Like ultimately it ends with them, but the things that they do on a daily basis, the ones that I've known, the things that they actually do themselves on a daily basis, not following up or not, reading report, the things that they're actually doing, it's a small group of things that they're responsible for actually doing every single day. And then over time, they have, they have delegated, they've got departments that maybe they're looking at a high level view of that, but somebody else is doing those activities. The stuff that the actual CEO does is pretty minimal.
Yeah, minimal in task, but I think they're vital to the business, right? For example, like looking at numbers. Yeah, biggest impact. Yeah, exactly. So looking at numbers, I'm amazed by how few agents actually track their numbers. Like I'm amazed. Like I can't imagine. Like, can you imagine getting on a plane and the pilot is not looking at the gears, not knowing where they're going, not looking at the speed, not looking at things like that? Can you imagine any corporation out there that's got stockholders to report to, not looking at the data, looking at their sales, their expenses, things like that? So it's surprising to me how agents don't look at their numbers, and especially the ones that generate. If you're out there making phone calls and you're prospecting and even doing mailers or whatever it is, you're generating leads. I think it's important to track those numbers to gauge where you are, where you're heading, any pitfalls that you might be approaching, any momentum you're gaining or losing, things like that.
Yeah. So you can, if as an agent, and I know we're very similar in terms of what we track, but as an agent, or the team leader or whoever, you're in charge of your business or a team's business, then in your pocket on a daily basis or accessible to you on a daily basis, you've got to know those guys, key performance indicators, that those are all the little things that roll up on a daily basis to show what your week's going to look like. Your week becomes your month, and then your month actually becomes your year. And those are, those are kind of the holy grail of being able to predict what's going to happen, because you have all the past performance. And if we did this for the last 5 years and it created this result, then if we do it for the next year, it's probably going to create something similar. And better yet, if we want to increase it, where can I make some moves and actually increase the activities to then make the year turn out better? So I know, we can't go through all of them, but what are 2 or 3 of those that is on that? I know you don't carry around the pocket, the pocket pad that has all these on them, but what are 2 or 3 that on a daily basis you're keeping track of for your own business?
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. I mean, obviously we make outbound calls every morning, so I'm keeping track of every contact that I make, the number of contacts, the number of emails I get, because building a database is important, right? Because I don't want to keep making these calls for the rest of my life. So at some point, I want these inbound leads to come back to me, and I track the number of appointments set and then the number of listings taken. So it's not this broad thing where there's just this complicated and a bunch of numbers. Just 4 different numbers that I track every single day, and then I plug them into a spreadsheet. Now, with that spreadsheet, I'm looking, just by having those 4 numbers, I'm looking at all kinds of different ratios that tell me where the weaknesses are. If I'm not getting enough emails per contact, I know I need to be able to ask for it more often. If I'm not getting enough listings off of my appointments, I know I've got to work on my listing presentation. So just those 4 basic numbers, Brendon, allow me to really have a good look at where my business is. And you mentioned something a couple of minutes ago, talking about when you know these numbers, when you know your ratios, okay, it makes it so much easier to scale, and it gives you confidence, right? So if I know that every 12 people I talk to, I get a listing, that's a pretty good motivator for me to make another phone call, to make another contact.
I have so the personal numbers and stuff are similar to what you said, but like my admin has been with me for probably, I think it's like 12 years now. Right. She keeps, for every deal, every listing that I've got, she's got a spreadsheet that it's got the contact information, all those things for the owner. It's got the list price, the sales price, how many reductions. Now, she probably hasn't filled anything out on that for 2 years, because reductions right now aren't a big part of the market, but she has just a ton of data on each deal. And to your point, when, for a 5 or 6 year period where we were listing properties and, they weren't necessarily selling in 2 days, sometimes you had to go back and you had to ask for a price adjustment, price improvement. And so I knew at that point that 2 figures I can remember is that 76% of the properties that I was listing were selling the first time they were presented to the market. So they were selling with the list price that was actually presented to the market. And of the rest, another, I think 55% of them that didn't sell, they had to have a one price reduction. So we knew all the way down. And then after a certain period of time, she'd just be sending me like, these don't hit the criteria that they're going to sell. You need to talk to these people. So I didn't need a CMA. I just knew that a certain period of time had gone by, and everything else that I was listing was selling within a certain period of time. That was almost like an exception report. And that drove my activities. So somewhere, in just about everything we do, there's that exception that you can look at and go, all right, there's a red flag, or there's something that you're looking at and going, all right, I need to get 2 more pendings this month. So where do I get the listings, or where do I get the adjustments? It's kind of your answer key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as a business owner, you're making decisions on a daily basis. Yeah, so the more data you have access to, the better decisions you can make. It kind of reminds me of a book that I've read, I don't know, probably a dozen times, E-Myth. You've read it. I know a bunch of people that have read it. That's something I think every agent out there should read if they haven't read. It talks about, starting off when you're working for somebody and then, evolving into an entrepreneur and a business owner. It's a very short book, great read. Michael Gerber, E-Myth, highly recommended. But yeah, I mean, that's where it starts. It starts with, looking at the data, looking at the numbers, being able to make decisions. And then as you start building a team, looking at their numbers.
Yeah.
Looking at their performance. Now you start becoming an owner. If you're spending money on leads, you've got to look at the ROI on the leads. All right, how do you make the decision of how much to spend with what vendor? So I think tracking your numbers is a key part of being a CEO or actually running your own business.
Yeah. And I think that, if some of the stuff that people are hearing is like, I'm not doing that, don't let yourself off the hook. Yeah. Like, this isn't, I don't think most of us are designed by default to just take responsibility for everything. And that's what we're doing. When you say, all right, I'm going to track this stuff, I'm going to pay attention to what's going on, I'm going to find out what I'm measuring, what I'm doing, then you're taking responsibility. You're not working for anybody anymore. If the numbers don't work out and you've got a boss, then it's the boss's fault, at least in our mind. This is, we kind of default to that, but just understand that's normal. Now you want to be a business owner, which means the great thing is your wins, you own them. And if there's stuff that doesn't work out, you own that too, but you learn something from it. So, I just encourage anybody that sees this to take ownership of it and realize it's not anything wrong with you. It's not natural. We all want to push something off to somebody else, but you want to be the CEO of your business. So take ownership of it and grow.
Yeah. And it doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, we're talking, we can spend 5 minutes a day, every morning, just looking at the data, looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
All right. Cool, Brendon. All right. Well, enjoy this. We'll do this again soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd say too, this is, we do a lot of coaching, but this is kind of our, intent with this is to be just more conversational and kind of give everybody a peek into what we do. Maybe that's not as formal coaching and stuff like that. So if people have suggestions and topics, we'd love to hear from those, and we'll definitely put them on there. And, we're just kind of inviting you into our coffee session. And I promise next time I'll have my
green screen
background. Yeah. This you like green, you're going to love this.
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing you just said, because I almost forgot. And we definitely want some input. We want you guys to chime in. So we'd love some comments. If you want to jump in the conversation, please next time we do this, join us. We're going to try to shoot for the same time every single week, just about 15 minutes. All right, Brendon.
Cool. All right.
I'll see you around the office.
Yep.
See ya.
Bye.